In 1945, when World War II ended, American soldiers returned to their homeland. Frank Harris arrived along with other military personnel. His mother was waiting for him at the airport. She was glad to have her son back, but they were soon destined to separate again. And this time for good, Frank bought a motorcycle and invited his mother to ride. As he was driving along a deserted road, he was suddenly attacked by a drunk driver and his girlfriend. There was an accident that resulted in the death of Frank's mother. At the same moment, in a parallel-drawn world, a brilliant scientist tests an artifact capable of creating windows into the real world. Thanks to his experiment, Frank, mourning his mother on the side of the road, is transported to the Toons. They explain to him what this place is and offer to stay. His military skills may come in handy here. Many years later, an artist who draws comics about a parallel world finds himself behind bars. He caught his wife with her lover and killed the latter. But even after being in prison, he did not stop drawing. In 1992, Jack Dibs began listening to one of his heroes. Her name was Hollywood. She called Jack and invited him to her place. One day, while Dibs was drawing Holly in her cell, something unusual happened. Some force transported him to the painted world, where he met Holly. She danced for him, but then Jack returned to the cell again, deciding that he had imagined it all. The invasion of a living person into their universe was reported to Frank Harris. He worked for many years in the police and is listed as a detective. One of his duties is to protect the parallel world from external invasion. Besides, he shouldn't let the uniform slip into reality if they found a way to do so. So Frank goes to see Holly because Jack Dibs was visiting her. After discovering that Holly is popular with real people, a cool young man named Sparks becomes jealous of her. He would gladly drive away all the suitors from his beauty. Sparks himself was in love with her, although he did not show it. When Frank came to Holly, Tara said that she was not involved in the penetration of a person into the painted world. But he also made it clear that he dreams of the real world. She heard that one of the cartoons escaped there and now lives among people. He even became the owner of a hotel in Las Vegas. Holly is madly determined to become real, flesh and blood, and move to Vegas. But for this, she will have to sleep with a guy. And the only living man in this place is Frank, and he already has a girlfriend. Holly hopes that one day Jack will stay with her long enough for them to make love. And then it will break out of the painted shell and become real. At the same time, Jack Dibs is released from prison. He came to his home and started drawing again. But then Holly called him to her, and he was transported to a parallel world. Cartoon characters were playing dice on the side of the road. The scammers beat up the cute bunny, and she rushed to complain about them to the police. Meanwhile, Jack tried to understand what was happening. Holly found him and explained that this was all really happening. Then the cops appeared, whom the bunny called, and would had to get his beloved out of here. At the time, Frank was dating his girlfriend Lynette. She works as a waitress in one of the restaurants in the parallel world. These two lead a chaste life, since making love is strictly prohibited for them. However, Frank Niles' partner does not allow him to spend the evening with his beloved. He reports that Jack has re-entered the drawn reality and is meeting with Holly. The partners go to the club, where Wood brought his friend, and Frank looks for Dibs. He finds a pen and explains that in a parallel world, it can become an excellent weapon. Frank also warns that sleeping with cartoons is strictly prohibited. Harris also makes it clear that this world existed long before Jack began painting it. Soon after, Dibs returns to reality and Frank follows Lynette. She offers to spend the night together, but without intimacy. And Harris almost agrees, but then Nails comes again and talks about the misdeed. The two go to Holly to stop the crime. She called Jack back to her. When he found himself among the cartoons, Holly's assistants took him to his master. At that moment, Frank and Nils snuck into her apartment to check if anyone was there. Unable to find Jack, Harris warned the beauty to stay away from Dibs or he would close her business. When Frank left Holly's house, Jack was brought there. The girl seduced him, and Dibs slept with her. Wood then became human. She was happy because now she would be able to enter the real world and make all her dreams come true. After finishing his shift, Frank went to his girlfriend, and Nils went to the station. Sparks called him. He heard rumors that Holly and Jack slept together, and now Wood has become human. Sparks wanted revenge on the two, so he called the police. Nils had trouble getting through to Harris, but realizing he was busy, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He went to Hollywood's house to arrest her. Meanwhile, the beauty stole Jack's pen and went outside to fight with Niles. She poked it, and the caricature disappeared into the paddock. She then returned to Deeps and suggested that they leave the place. They hugged, and an unknown force transported them to Jack's apartment. A neighbor heard the noise of movement between worlds and wanted to know if everything was okay. She took her daughter with her to make sure Jack was safe and didn't leave. Meanwhile, Frank Harris met Sparks and learned that Holly was now human. He also learned that she destroyed Niles and crossed into the real world. This meant that he had to follow her. Only Frank was in no hurry to return to reality. For him, it is filled with pain and memories of his mother's death. However, he decides to leave because otherwise both worlds, real and drawn, will perish in cosmic chaos. Lynette didn't want to let him go. She believed that Frank would stay in reality and forget her. However, she had to give up because saving the parallel world is more important. At the same time, Jack took Holly to a club where there were many men. Seeing such diversity, Wood decided to seduce everyone. She ran onto the stage to sing, and Dibs was kicked out of the club for not interfering. On the way out, Jack resists and begins to flicker, then turns into a caricature, then becomes himself. Holly winced at this. The audience thought it was part of the show. Realizing that something unusual was happening, she fled the scene and went to look for Dibs. After meeting Jack, she asked to be taken to a casino that was rumored to belong to the cartoon character. There's an artifact hidden there that can heal her. Holly believes that this thing will forever make her real. On the way, he and Jack argue and Wood throws him out of the car. Dibs goes home. Here he meets Frank, who was recently transported from a parallel world. Noticing his transition, the neighbor's daughter runs to visit Jack and realizes that the two are trying to save the world from destruction. She agrees to take her mother's car and take Dibs and Harris to the casino. Together they can stop Holly and prevent the destruction of the real world. On the way, these two tell the girl about a drawn universe where you can be transported, and she believes them. Holly makes it to the casino, but cannot find the artifact that will make her 100% human. She is kicked out onto the street, where she meets the scientist who brought Frank into the world of cartoons. He created tunnels from a parallel universe to reality, but realizing that this could destroy, he sealed both worlds. Besides the scientist, Frank knows about the tunnel. If you remove the artifact installed on the roof of the casino, the two universes will begin to merge, destroying them. But Holly doesn't pay attention to the old man's warnings. She pokes Jack's arm, and he falls apart. He then goes to the roof of the building. At this moment, Frank and Jack arrive at the casino. Harry sends Dibs and his neighbor to restore the scientist, and he runs after Holly. She manages to get into one of the hotel rooms on the top floor, from where she goes out onto the balcony and tries to climb onto the roof. At that moment, she drops the Dibs pen and it breaks. Frank walks behind Holly. The young woman feigns fear and Harris climbs in to help her down. But Holly pushes him away and he starts fluttering around again. Frank falls and dies. Realizing that only he can stop the former cartoon, Jack turns his hands into drawings and climbs onto the roof of the building. Here he catches up with Holly, but it is too late. She has already taken the artifact, opening a passage between the worlds. Thousands of creatures poured from the painted universe into reality, filling everything around. Holly has become a caricature again. Jack also became a drawn character. Random people in Vegas also began to change their appearance, but the drawn Dibs managed to close the tunnel between the worlds, and all the cartoon characters were sucked into their universe. At that moment, nails emerged from Jack's broken arm. It turns out he was just sitting inside all this time. Having seen the corpse of his partner, Nails decided to take him with him to the painted world. Lynette then found him. When she found out that Frank was killed by a cartoon, she was happy. In this case, the individual does not die, but is carried away. And indeed, Harris was transformed. He came to life as a comic book character. Now she and Lynette can be together. Frank didn't want to leave the parallel world before, but now he has every right to stay here forever. Jack in the cartoon world also ended up on the pages of comics. He decided to stay with Holly. Besides, he had big plans. The Deeps continued to draw. He also longs for Holly to bear him children so he can fight the evil in this world.